Welcome to another video tutorial. In this video, we're going to continue on from the previous video where we covered request coordinate, and we're going to expand upon the modify navigation function. So we're going to focus predominantly on modify navigation in this video, talking about how to troubleshoot it, how to improve the code that we had last time, make it so it's going to error less, but also expand upon what we've already covered, so improve things a bit. So just to go over where we left things in the previous video, if you haven't watched the previous video, I recommend taking the time quickly to do that, just so you're up to speed. But just as a quick reminder, just where we left off the video, we were building this bridge across this chasm here, in between these two rooms, and we had the following script. Let me just load it up. Build bridge. Let's go full screen on the code. So you can see that what we're doing here is originally let's uncomment out this bit of code here. This is how it originally was. What we were doing was we were validating the coordinates, making sure that the tile that we're hovering over is not, it can't be empty. So if we're hovering over, for example, one of these tiles, it wouldn't be allowed. One of these tiles, it wouldn't be allowed. It would have to be an empty, vacant tile. And then the other thing we were just confirming is that it was one of these four coordinates here, which is these four here. And if that was the case, then it would return those coordinates if it was in the selected request coordinate. We've obviously changed that. Now we've got it set to return true, which we'll put back in a second. And then if that's the case, then it allows us to store the request coordinate essentially into this result variable. And then we increment the plank ID by 1. We then add the tile to that location, giving it the dynamic ID. And then we make sure that that tile is facing the right direction. And then we add that tile to a group, just so that we can then later go through that group and do the navigation. We then decrease the amount of planks in our inventory by 1, so we can only place 4. And then when that amount of planks has gone to 0 or less, then we hide the widget that allows us to place the planks. And then we loop through the group that we've built by placing the planks, and we connect them all up. Now, at the moment, this would work fine as long as we are specifically using these coordinates, because when we loop through and connect them all, we have these tiles on either side to connect these four to, if that makes sense. So this tile, for example, when it gets placed, we'll be able to connect to this tile. This tile, when it gets placed, will be able to connect to this tile, because that tile and that tile already exist in the map. However, we're going to have a problem if I comment this out, that we allow the tiles to be placed anywhere. So let's say we allow the tiles to be built over here. Well, when we've finished, although you'll have the 4 tiles of the bridge, you won't have a connecting tile on either side. So if we actually run this for a moment, here we are in the game, and I'll just quickly demonstrate what happens. Let's bring the console down, type nav on, press the hotkey to bring up the widget, and I can place this anywhere there's a vacant tile, so it doesn't have to be this gap here anymore. So let's build the 4 planks over here and build our bridge over here. And what's going to happen is it is going to build the nav line across when we're done, but it also brings up this error. And this error is because the last one we placed, this one here, doesn't have a tile on the other end in order to connect this one to the next one. So it gives an error. So the first thing we need to do is we need to fix this particular code so that that error goes away. So this process is just a bit more robust and a bit more less prone to errors. So let me show you how we're going to do that. And then what we're going to do, so we're going to cover 3 things. Sorry, in this video I should mention this as well. We're going to cover 3 things. First of all, we're going to fix that error. so that the bridge can be built anywhere, even though it doesn't make any sense because we wouldn't be able to get to the bridge, but it's just to show you how you can stop errors with modify navigation. Then we're actually going to improve the bridge code so that as we place each piece of bridge, it builds the navigation as we build it rather than at the end. So we're going to improve that as well. And then at the very end, we're going to cover how to expand upon that particular process to basically build a room dynamically in the game. So we're almost going to make a map editor in the game. Okay. Now I'm not going to go into any great detail in that. I will cover how to do the floor plan, how to navigate it all up, how to link it all up. And then I'll give you a sort of proof of concept at the very end of making a room. Okay. So let's get started first of all with fixing the script for this where we left off last time. So we want to get rid of those error messages. So it's actually very simple. What we want to do is when we loop through the tiles, we want to check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a local variable called forward tile, and it's going to equal dollar, we think about this, it's going to equal tile $I, because this is what we're looping through. We're looping through the group of tiles that's in the bridge group, and it's storing each one as we loop through into this $I. So what we want to do is we want to grab the tile that's in front of that particular tile as we loop through. So forward tile equals tile $1.x. So that's the coordinate of the tile we're on at the moment as we loop through .x. $I.y, and then -1, because that's what we're modifying here. And $I.z. Okay, so we're storing that particular tile, not the one we're on, but the one in front of the one we're on each time we loop through. Then what we want to do is we want to check if $forward tile is not null, i.e. is there a tile there? If there is a tile there, then we want to do this. Otherwise, don't do anything. So it's only going to modify the navigation if it sees that there is a tile in front of the one that it's then trying to link up. Does that make sense? So we're basically saying for every tile in the group, the bridge, grab the tile in front of it. If there is a tile in front of it, then connect them up. Okay? And obviously, because we haven't done an else, if there isn't a tile in front, it's not going to do anything. So it's not going to connect anything up. So let's save that. So now that should basically remove the error. So now we should be able to place all 4 plank tiles without any errors at the end of it. Because when it tries to place the last tile, because there isn't a tile in front of it, it should then just not try to connect it up. So if we place that, and that, there we go. No errors, and they're all connected up. But obviously we can't get to them, but that's beside the point. The point is we've now made it so that we can build this bridge anywhere we want, and it's not going to error once we've done that, and it is still going to link the path up. Okay? And obviously this would work if we were to place this in the correct place as well. So let's just go back to doing that quickly. So if we were to actually build the bridge where it's supposed to be built, then because there is tiles in front and behind, it should still link them all up when it's done. Well, that's interesting. It didn't do the one behind it. Right. So what we need to do is we also need to grab the back tile. So let's do that as well. So as we loop through, what we want to do is we want to grab back tile. And this is going to be I.x, I.y plus 1, $i.z. Store that as well. If there is a forward tile, then modify the navigation. But also, if there is a back tile, then do that as well. I just need to change that to plus. Well, compile and save that. We'll test this one more time. Okay, so with that saved, I had to correct a typo there. But let's test this out. So first of all, let's just check that if I build it completely off to the side, it doesn't error. So that's still fine. Let's just restart. And now let's build it in the correct place. And this time it should connect everything up. Okay. So now we can completely walk from one marine into the other. Okay. Now the only problem we've got now, it's not a problem, but one thing we could improve is that it only connects the bridge up when we've finished. And I did that for the previous video just because I thought it was going to be a complicated process to do it bit by bit, but it's actually not, and we're already halfway there. So let's now get into how to actually link the bridge up as we place each piece rather than doing it at the very end. So going back to the script. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to comment out add to group, because we're already doing that because we're then going to loop through the group and connect it all up at the end. But what we want to do now is we want to do it as we place each bridge piece. And what we're going to do is we're also going to do this a bit earlier. What I'm actually going to do is after I place each plank and rotate it, I'm then going to create a local variable that's going to store the current tile, just so that it is quicker and easier to reference. Just paste those for a second, just so they're out of my clipboard, because I'm going to grab that. So we're going to store the current entity that we just created, the add tile. Gets given an ID, we rotate it, and then we store it in this local variable. Forward tile needs to be this tile, the one we're on, .x. This tile, .y minus 1. This tile, .z. And then the back tile is pretty much the same. It's this tile, x. This tile, .y minus plus 1. And then this tile, .z. And then we want to check if they're null. So if the forward tile is null, or sorry, is not null, so there isn't an empty space in front, then we want to modify the navigation between this tile, so the one we're currently on, and the forward tile. To connect them up. If the back tile is not empty, then we want to connect this tile to back tile end, and then we're going to remove the planks, and if the planks are less than or equal to 0, just hide the widget, and that should be it. So basically, instead of looping through, what we're doing now is we're basically, as we store the coordinate in result, we increment the plank ID, we add the tile to that location, giving it that unique ID, we rotate that particular entity. Just for ease of reference, we then store that entity into this tile variable. Then off of that tile, we grab the forward tile, the one in front, grab the back tile, the one behind. If the forward tile is not empty, then we connect this tile to the forward tile. If the back tile is not empty, we also connect this tile to the back tile. Decrease the amount of planks. If the planks is ever equal to 0 or less, then hide the widget. So that should now mean that as we place each plank, it should connect the navigation as we go along, rather than doing it all at the end. So let's save this and test. So let's turn the nav on, and let's see if this works. So as we place the first piece, it should connect these two tiles together, which it does. And the next piece, let's test it by going this way. We're leaving a gap. That seems to work. And now it should connect everything up. And there we go. So as we build the bridge, we can walk across it, even if it's not complete. So that's basically how to make the ultimate bridge code. Basically, that's taken what we where we left off in request coordinate and made the ultimate bridge code now. So that's, hasn't got any errors, and it's building it as we place, it's building the connections as we place each piece rather than doing it at the end. It's up to you which you prefer to do. You can connect it all up afterwards or do it as you go along. It's entirely up to you. So let's take this code now, because this is quite a cool piece of code, because basically what we're allowing now, if you think about it, is we can build. Let's run it again just so you can see what's happening here. We can place these tiles anywhere we want. Let's just bring the console down again. We can place these tiles wherever we want, and it will link them up as we connect pieces together. The only problem is if I place a piece here, it doesn't make a connection, right? So it only connects the ones going up and down. So we could fix that, for example, but in doing so, we could start to maybe expand upon our bridge code, and let's make it so we can build a floor, so a whole sort of connected floor rather than just a bridge that connects two rooms together. So for this, what we're going to do is we'll leave the script the same name, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the tile to, let's say, a green tile. So I'm just going to load this up in the model viewer, grab a snapshot of it, call it green floor, something like that. And then in our widget, let's change planks to green floor. So we're going to place this floor now, and we'll leave the code, as I say, the same. So it's still going to run the same script. The widget can still be called planks, even though it doesn't make any sense because it's not planks anymore, but you get the idea. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start by going to the startup script, and I'm going to change the amount of planks we start with from 4 to 9, so we can build like a 3x3 floor space. Apply and save, And now we need to make it so that as we place each piece, no matter where we place it, in whatever configuration we build, it connects it all up. So for that, what we're going to do is go back to our bridge script, go into the script mode, and let's think about how we're going to do this. So we still want to make sure that we can't build it on something that's already got a tile, so that's fine. We don't need to have this because we're going to basically build the room wherever at the moment. We're going to store the coordinate each time. We're going to have the plank ID go up so we can give it a unique ID. However, this time it's not the bridge, it's the green tile that's going to get placed. We'll give it the ID of green tile 1 or whatever. As it goes through, it's going to increment green tile. And then this tile is going to equal entity green tile 1 or 2 or however we loop through. This bit's fine, but what we're going to do now is we're just going to grab both of those and we're going to make a $left tile, which is going to be this tile x plus 1. It may not be the exact left or right, but it doesn't really matter. We don't need it to go forward in y because that's what the forward and back tiles do. And then the right tile is going to be this tile dot x minus 1, and then just y normally. And then we're just going to copy both of these and repeat the same checks. If left tile is not null, and if right tile is not null, then connect this tile to left tile and connect this tile to right tile. And then decrease the planks, and then when the planks equal 0 or less, hide the widget. So that should pretty much be now our floor code done. So let's check what we've just created. Let's apply this, save it, and test it again. So here we are engaged. So we'll just go off to the side here. We'll bring the nav on. And let's press L. There's our green tile. So let's place one there. It's connecting them up. If I go up, it should go and link those up. If I go across, it should link those up. Now you can see that we've pretty much got... Oops. Okay, well, let's do that. There we go. So we created it, not exactly the square I wanted, but you can see it's worked even though we went up one, and I should have done. You can see it's still connected because it doesn't matter whether we go forwards, back, left or right, it will check whether a tile is there and connect them up. So you can already see that you can make any shape of floor plan and our code will cater for it. So what we're basically doing is, as you can see, we're storing the coordinate we click into result, giving it an incremented ID, adding a tile to that place. We don't really need this, to be honest, anymore because this floor model is pretty much omnidirectional. We're then storing the current tile in this tile. We're also grabbing the tile in front of it, the tile behind it, the tile to the left of it, the tile to the right of it, and then just checking if all of those tiles are not null. And if there is a tile to the left, or if there's a tile in front, connect it up. If there's a tile behind, connect it up. If there's a tile to the left, connect it up. And if there's a tile to the right, connect it up. So it's pretty robust. It's going to basically do any shape you want until you run out of planks or run out of green tiles or whatever. So the last thing I'm going to show is a final sort of iteration of this. I sort of did this in my spare time. I'm not going to rebuild this in the tutorial. What I'll do is I'll show you the end result, and then walk you through the code, but I'm not going to build it step by step. So let's just cancel this for a second. Don't need to make any changes to that. Let's just go to the map editor for a moment and just check. Do I have a suitable... Actually, let's do it with the small map. Let's delete this room for a second. And I'm just going to make a path of some description. Let's just use this again. Let's do that. Okay. And I do actually need to make one adjustment to my code actually that I'm going to use. So I'm going to load a piece of code now, which is going to look a lot more complicated than where we left off. But I will walk you through it once I've demonstrated it. But I just need to change this to green tile, and I should be it's not quite. Let's do it here as well. But that should be it, I hope. Just checking before I run it. Should be it. So let's give this a test. We need to actually assign it first. So let me save this. Okay, so that's saved, and then I just need to go to this and change it from build bridge to build room. Then we'll save that and we'll run this. So I'll quickly demonstrate this and then walk you through what happens. So if I press L, it brings up the widget in order to place our floor tile. If we click the first piece, you'll notice that I can't seem to place it anywhere. Now, there are some places you can. That's because of the condition that allows for them to be placed. But you can see that I can't place it on any of the pre-existing tiles. I can't place it on any empty space I want. There's only a handful of places that I can place it, one of those being the tile right in front of me. So if I click to place that one, then I click the next piece, notice I can build this one anywhere I want now. So it's changed. The request coordinate has changed. It does something differently the second time I click it. So let's finish building up this room by placing a 3x3 grid of floor tiles. And with any luck, once we place the final piece, the magic should happen. Boom, and there we go. Not only does it hide the widget, but now it's also automatically built four walls around the room with a doorway that we can walk in and out of. So this is like a sort of auto map generator, if you will. So you make the room, you make the floor, and then it sort of automatically connects the walls up for you. Now, it's not a completely robust system. It's a very simple implementation of it, but I'll just quickly walk you through how I've basically accomplished this. So let's go to the script. So this is the build room script, and it's considerably more detailed than the build bridge script. There's a fair bit more to it, but it's not complicated. It's just there's a lot to it. So let me quickly explain how I've done this. So first of all, there's two validation functions. There's a validate coordinates, which is how we place every remaining room tile. But there's also a validate doorway, which is what happens the first time you place a tile. And what this one does is this checks if the tile in front of the one you're hovering over is empty. Then it checks if the tile behind the one you're on is also empty. Then it doesn't allow it. So in other words, if the tile in front and the tile behind the one you're currently hovering over is empty, then it assumes, which would be correct, you're trying to place this tile in, let me show you on the map editor. It would be you trying to place the tile here. It would be a completely vacant tile. So in other words, let me just zoom in over here for a sec. So this would be a tile that doesn't have anything in front or anything behind, because there's, as you can see, there's nothing in front, nothing behind. So you can't place a doorway here, okay? The other check I'm then checking for is if the tile in front is not empty and the tile behind is not empty, don't allow that either, because that would then be a tile in the middle of a room. That would be this one, for example, because this has a tile in front, but it also has a tile behind. That shouldn't be allowed either, so we shouldn't be able to build the doorway on a path. We want to start a whole new room, so it needs to be a tile basically at the end of a path or at the end of a pre-existing room. And then the final check we do is if the tile we're actually on has a tile on it, then it should also not be allowed. So not only should the tile in front and behind also be empty, but also not be connected, but also the tile we're also hovering on should not be empty either, or should be empty even. If all of that's fine, then we allow it. So we return true if all of those are not the case. Then the first thing I do is I check a global property, which I start as being false in the startup. And this global property just checks if we've built the start piece. If we haven't built the start piece, which we won't to begin with, then it starts by doing a request coordinate, but with the validate doorway. So it's going to make sure that we place the first tile connected to a pre-existing path. When we then place that tile, it adds the tile to that location, gives it an ID of room door. It then rotates it, doesn't really need to because the green tile doesn't have a direction, but if it did, then you'd rotate it to face the right way. Then I store that entity into a door variable just so it's quick and easy to access. I then check if the tile in front of the tile I've just placed is not null. If it isn't, then connect it up. Otherwise, if it's behind, connect it up. I then decrease the amount of planks and then set the start piece to true. So I have placed the start piece. Then the next time I click the button, because this is going to be true, I have already placed the start piece. It then does a different request coordinate, which is just to validate the coordinates up here, which is just check that you're not hovering over a pre-existing tile. And then it basically does our bridge code, which is it increments the plank ID, it adds the green tile, giving it a dynamic ID, it rotates if it needs to, adds to a group. This time I put the group back in order to build the walls, which we'll get to in a second. So you add to a group each floor as you go through, putting it in a group called room floor. I then create a variable for this particular tile, grab the tile in front of it, the tile behind it, the tile to the left of it, the tile to the right of it. If there is a tile to the left and to the forward and to the back and to the right, connect them up, decrease the amount of planks. And then the final bit is if the amount of planks is 0 or less, then then set the local variable again to the door tile that we placed at the very beginning. I have to do that because this is a local variable, so each time you run this script, this will be blank. So because we've got it in an if here, where if it's false, but the next time we run it, it's going to be true, so it's not going to have that variable. So I need to declare it again at the end. So store it here, hide the widget, and then loop through the room floor group. So for every tile in group room floor, if the tile in front is null, so in other words, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. This is where I'm doing the walls. So let me just comment this just so it's clear. Oops. This is where I build the walls. So what I do is I loop through the group, grabbing every tile, And the first thing I do is I check if the tile in front is empty. Then if it is empty, I then check if the tile to the left is empty. So in other words, if we look at it as on the map screen, I'm basically saying, is the tile in front empty and is the tile to the left empty? If that's the case, then we can pretty much ascertain that the tile we're currently on at the moment is a top left tile. It's a corner tile. So if that's the case, I then add tile top left to that coordinate, but z+1. So it's a tile above the current tile. Because as you know, walls have to go on top of floors. And what I've done is I've made a model for each corner piece. So rather than having to rotate one model, I've basically done that in the voxel editor. So I've got a top left, a top right, I've got a bottom right, I've got a bottom left, I've got a left, I've got a right, I've got a top, I've got a bottom. So basically I made a model for each possible place in a room that you would have a tile. And so if it is vacant in the top and vacant on the left, then we add tile top left. If it's vacant on the top but vacant on the right, add top right. And if it's not vacant on the sides, then it's just vacant on the top. So add the top tile, wall tile along the top. If it's not vacant along the top, then check if it's vacant along the bottom. If it's vacant along the bottom, check if it's vacant also on the left. Then if it is, add bottom left corner. If it's not vacant on the left but vacant on the right, add the bottom right. And if it's not vacant on the sides but is vacant on the bottom, then add the bottom. And if it's not vacant on the top or the bottom, then check if it's vacant on the left, add the left. Otherwise, check if it's vacant on the right, add the right. Okay? So that's basically how we dynamically build the top left, the top right, the top walls, the bottom lefts, the bottom rights. It builds the walls dynamically as you go along. And then the last thing it does is it then just adds the tile, the doorway, to the initial start tile. This is why I have this start piece here. So I've got a separate tile where the door goes, because it became very problematic to do that automatically in the same looping process, because if you're checking whether there's a tile in front and a tile to the left, it gets very fiddly with doors, because obviously the doorway is going to be, let's grab the tile, the doorway tile is going to be here, but it's going to fail the check of having a tile not in front and not to the left, because there is a tile behind, right? This tile here, if we had, let's place it so you can see what I mean. This tile here is going to have a tile behind it, this one here. So it's not going to place any of these wall pieces because it's not going to fit any of these if checks. And we can't just do else add a door, because the other tile that would also be true for is this one here, because this also has tiles to the left, to the right, underneath, to the top. So you'd also have a door there as well. It would put a door there as well. So it took me a long time to work out how I could get a door to be placed automatically. And in the end, I decided the best thing to do is to designate a tile where you want the door to go. And the easiest way I found to do that is just connect a tile to the existing path first, store that separately, then put all the other tiles into a separate group, loop through that group, putting all the walls in place, and then the last bit you do is you add the door to the tile you placed at the very beginning. Okay? So let's just cancel all of that and test it. Again, just let's try building a different sized room. Let's see what happens. So let's go over here, press L. Obviously that's our doorway. So let's put a wall piece there, wall piece there. And let's think about, well, there isn't much variety we can do at the moment because I haven't got any sort of different types of walls at the moment. So, but you can see it builds the, as I say, it's a very simple implementation, but it's just to give you an idea of how you could make a room generator, you know. And obviously you could place the walls manually as well. So when you finish placing the floors, you could have a widget pop up with the walls and you would just kind of do the same thing. You would just add tile manually with request coordinate. But anyway, so I just thought I'd do this video just to show you, first of all, how to improve the bridge code, how to make it so that as you place each piece, it builds the navigation bit by bit. And then we could expand upon that and flesh it out into a completely different thing, which is a room builder in a way. But a very simple implementation of one just to sort of show you where you could start with that and then build out from here. So with that said, that'll wrap up this video. If you had any questions, obviously feel free to find me on the Discord. But for now, that'll wrap this video up. Thanks for watching.